Hey folks, Eric Wooldridge here of the Additive Guru channel, and today we're going to demonstrate some work on a project that we're doing for some basic tactical applications. We're going to start off by learning to model and create the cutout shape of picatinny rail, which is a common tactical rail associated with all types of firearms, and it's used for attaching accessories to rifles and pistols excuse me, and other types of tactical weapons. So you can actually find this cross section pretty much with a Google search, but this is the mil-spec picatinny rail cross section. And you can Google this, find these dimensions. I have them in metric here, and if you need to, you can screen capture it about right now to get a feel for it, or just go Google them yourselves. To create what we're going to create, we're actually, when you look at it, the dimensions aren't laid out in sort of the typical way that we model something. So I want you to focus specifically on this box that you see right here. That's what we're going to begin with, because most of the dimensions that you see are related to that box. If we have that box, then we can turn around and model everything else. Okay, so let's start off with modeling that. I'm going to flip over here. I'm going to slide this off the screen and just a little bit there. And I'm going to start by creating a cross section to represent this. So I'm going to make the box, and the box is in fact dimensioned here. The box is represented as being 19 wide, and it is a total of 2.74 deep. So there is our box. Okay, now that we have our box, we're going to create a center line to work with so that we can always track everything. And we'll put it right there. Actually, I'll put it straight up and then straight down. That way we'll be able to lock on to it periodically. And I'll even add a dimension so that I can keep track to make sure it doesn't move. And looks like we're going to hold it 19.5, and that's what we should be seeing. I do that just in case something shifts a little bit and I lose that. Another thing that I'm going to do in our part is I'm going to start working on some horizontal lines to represent this line going here and the top edge going there. And you'll notice that the top edge right here is measured from this bottom of the box. So the box is 2.74, but the top edge is 4.17 from the bottom up. So I'm just going to create a horizontal line. Doesn't really matter where. I'm going to change it back to a non-construction line, hit dimension, and choose here to here, and set it to 17, because I think I am 4.17. There we go. Yep. So that represents that point. We're not worried about it being centered on the line or anything. We're just establishing some markers to work with. Then we see that the bottom edge here is 9.4 down. So I'm going to draw another horizontal line. Again, doesn't matter what it locks onto. In fact, I'm going to avoid locking onto things as much as I can to actually apply a dimension from here to here, and set that, of course, to, well, I thought it would flip over, 9.4. There we go. So that's going to give me something to work with. Now what you'll notice, though, they don't provide you a lot of good information from the center line out. They just have these dimensions kind of floating around, and they don't tell you a whole lot about locations. They do tell you, though, that these angles that you see, these legs coming and sloping, are at 45 degrees. They just don't actually tell you where it starts here or anything. They just basically assume they're going to be 45 degrees off these points. So what I want to do is I'm just going to simply draw a line that is heading this way. I'm going to draw a line that is heading this way. I will set it to be dimension 45 degrees, and I'll set this one to be dimensioned of, it made a bad assumption, so I need to delete that. If I can get that constraint to delete. Alright, might be simpler than me just to draw it. Try again. Going nice and slow. And a line of 45 and then dimensioning it here to here is going to be 45, and there to there is going to be 45. Now you'll notice these rails don't come to a point, it comes to a flat edge, and how far apart from one side to the other that edge is 21.2. So now I have to figure out, we are going to assume that it's going to be in the very center of the box. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to draw a line. Notice this, by the way, see how this line is now shifted down? That's not a good thing. It's carrying another line on top of it. We don't want that. We're going to create a horizontal line. We're going to come this way. We do want it to be centered, of course. So I'm going to draw it from here. Actually, probably don't want to do that. I'm going to draw it from like right here, so that I have some center point to lock onto. It's giving me kind of, you got to be careful too, because I'm getting a double center there, and I don't want to miss the wrong one. So I'm going to grab this one and drag it up, so its center line doesn't get in my way. And I'm going to draw a center line from here. I'm going to draw it this way, and then I'm going to do a nifty trick. You'll notice that the center line, or this distance across to this notch, is supposed to be 21.2. So what I'm going to do is dimension, and I'm going to click the center line in this edge, and I'm going to right click and say diameter dimension. And see how it jumps over to the other side there? That's going to be real handy, because I'm going to change it to 21.2. 21.2. So now where the end of that line comes is where this thing is supposed to notch off. So all I have to do is zoom in close, go straight up, and go straight down. So now we know what our angles are, we know what parts it's supposed to be. I'm going to drag these 45s in a little bit too, and then I'm going to start trimming. I'm going to trim that. So I think I am. Trim that, going to trim that, going to trim that, and essentially going to delete that and delete that. And so there we go. Our center line is still centered. It's still the right width all the way across. And we have some stuff to work with. Next step, of course, is to start designing the other feature, like this point right here, these walls. So nifty little trick. I'm just going to do this. Draw a line. Doesn't really matter where I start it. I'm just going to draw it there. And I'm going to do the same dimensional trick. I'm going to click from this edge to this. And then I'm going to right click and say diameter dimension and set it to be 15.6. There we go. Looks like there's a deal on Matter Hackers. Okay, so I've got that created. I have a good chunk of my design moving along quite a bit. You will notice though that I see that these edges need to come up and intersect with each other. So I'm going to go ahead and use my extend feature to extend that up. Use it to extend that down. And you'll notice they got a lot of little extra lines and things happening here, which is fine. We can trim those off very quickly by using trim, and there we go. I also don't even need this anymore. I do want that to stay 15.6, so when I may have to bring that back. There we go. Dimension here to here, right click, diameter dimension, 15.6. Okay. Alright, so everything's located pretty well. And then of course what I really like to do is use my ability to mirror and to finish this up pretty fast. So mirror tool, select this and this, select the mirror line itself and say OK. And come over here and trim a little bit of this off. Delete whatever that is hanging out in space. And you'll notice I have just about everything that I'm supposed to have, and my dimensions are lining up. The one thing I am going to do though is I'm going to see if I can't do a fillet right here and go ahead and round this off and click this edge and this edge, see what it does. I don't really like it doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this back. Oh shoot, lost my dimension. Dimension from here to here is supposed to be 9.4. Now let's see if it'll let me do it correctly. Nah, still wants to do that. I don't really want it to chop it off that way. So what I'm going to do is just add a little extra block underneath, or just like some point. It doesn't really matter how the bottom part falls into, because if you'll notice in the drawing, they don't give you anything about this, because once you're past this point, it doesn't matter what the shape is. So I'm just going to draw blocks out there a little bit, maybe do a little trimming, trim this off, pull that back out, trim this off, do a fillet here, 1.5 is the dimension, and I'll draw another line back and do a fillet here and say 1.5 and have my cross section. Now if I want to be, just a little bit more dimensionally controlled, I can click here and here and say I'm going to make that 12 and dimension from here to here and say I'm going to make that equal to that. There we go. And then maybe we'll say we're going to make it a total of, 5 millimeters. Doesn't really matter how thick this is again, because this is going to be any kind of shape you want it to be. All that really matters is this feature right here. So this could be you adding a picatinny rail to an object or a design, or you making the cut of the picatinny out around it. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let's just say that I'm going to make my own attachment that goes around this thing. Check this out. I'm going to click here. All right. And what we have is a cross section that is now shaped around the picatinny. Let's just say I kind of make it like this, and this, and this, and that. A bit more rounded there. And I say finish sketch. And I say extrude. And let's just say I say 15. And there is our product that's going to fit around the picatinny rail. Now you may say, well, that looks like a little bit tight on the tolerances, and that is absolutely true. To play it safe, what I could do is actually create a little bit of a gap between the two to give a little bit of offset. Before I do that though, let's have you go ahead and kind of repeat what I've done. Go ahead and pause the video and then come along with me there in the process, and then we'll go back. Alright, now at this point in time we can always go back into the sketch, edit sketch, and I can give myself a little bit of an offset from this feature. And I can say offset here, here, and let's see if I can get her out there, and maybe here. There we go. And maybe I'm just going to do a offset of minus 0.1. That gives me a little bit of clearance. Maybe we'll say 0.3. That's going to be our clearance rate. Maybe even 0.2. Right. That'll give us a clearance all the way around our features, potentially to let it lock on pretty well. You will notice though that it's not actually attached here. So once I get done drawing or choosing my offset, I'm still going to have to come back in, see if it's going to accept it. It is. And I'm going to have to close it there by drawing across or drawing straight down, whatever your preference is. I'm just going to go across. We'll go across, and now my cross section will be different. I will have to go back down here and right click and say edit, and deselect this zone from the extrusion. There we go. There we go. And if you want to see it back in play, you can always come back in here and turn your sketch back on, and you can see how it fits within that zone. And so now, if I decide, you know what, that's a little bit too loose, I can come back into my sketch. And I can say, find my offset value, which is somewhere in here. So right there it is. And it doesn't like that, does it? Oh, does it? minus 0.15. And let's see if it tightens up just a little bit. It does. And there we go. So pretty nifty approach. Alright, so maybe go ahead and pause the video and go back in and then give yourself a slight offset so that you'll have a gap between the part you're actually creating and the picatinny profile. Alright. Now the best thing about this is that this particular cross section is used in a lot of applications. So it's always a good thing to realize you can take this and you can take it from this point in your design work, save the file, save it as something else, and have a lot of stuff ready to go. You could even decide to hone in your design a little bit more by adding some fillets. Maybe right here, right there, right there, right there, right there, there, and there, and there, and maybe setting those to maybe a 0.5 or something nice and gentle, maybe even a 0.8. So they're not too bad, but it creates a little bit of an edging, a little bit of smoothness there at those joints. Again, we always want to avoid sharp corners if we can help it. Alright, so that's this for this one. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found it pretty useful. And check out some of our other material and other videos and our social media. You might find something else to be pretty handy. We'll also do another video based off of this, going into do some generative work. So check it out as well. We'll see you.